Good morning to you all. We continue our studies of Genesis to Revelations. Today we are on chapters 9 to 12. Now, when I started these daily Genesis to Revelation studies, it was for the reader, yourselves, to see for themselves the errors taught by their denomination as to what is required for eternal salvation. Or not just their denomination, but internet sites and so forth. Other questions since arose that I think needed addressing, as who are the real Jews of today? When did the slavery of Deuteronomy 28 occur? Who are the congregation of Israel, as the Bible calls them? And did the Bible become about Christians in the New Testament rather than remain being about the descendants of God's people, Israel, as were led out of Egypt by Moses? Also, is today's speaking in tongues biblical, man's creation, or of the devil? In showing answers to the other questions, I feel I have or may have diverted from the original intention and main focus.
However, if we believe a lie, deception, or tradition of men over "thus says Yahweh God," we could well lose our eternal salvation, which is the purpose of these teachings. Especially if that error in belief leads us to do what is not pleasing to God and breaking even one of his commandments without repenting for it. 1 John 4 verse 6 and 1 John 2 verse 4, in that one says, "He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him," i.e. he has a deception, an error, or tradition of man. Matthew 15 verse 6, the latter part of that verse says, "Thus have ye made the commandments of God of none effect by your traditions." Yeshua speaking. Acts 5 verse 29, Peter speaking and says we ought to obey God rather than men. And lastly, 1 John 3:22, "And whatsoever we ask, we receive of him because we keep his commandments and do things which are pleasing in his sight." And we have seen that word doing, the doers of the law, not the hearers of the law, etc., are the ones who get the eternal salvation. And lastly, I should say, Revelations 22 verse 14, "Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have a right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates of the city," the gates that lead us to the eternal salvation, the purpose of our studies. So, continuing. You should be reading the whole chapter for yourself, so you know it is the Bible teaching you and not myself.
You should be reading the whole chapters yourself and noting the points I highlight in order to collect information for yourselves that will answer the above and other questions, so that we all come to one faith, one belief, one practice of spirit and truth especially, and not tradition. The Bible extracts below and Judges in general is simply to show the transition of leadership of Israel from Moses and Joshua to kings and finally the King Messiah, Yeshua himself. It also tells of some of the history, Israel's national sin of following other gods, and then God's mercy on them time and time again. Remember in chapters 1 to 4 of Judges, we saw them, Israel, sold into slavery at least 3 times. Another occurs below in chapters 10 verse 7. Now the small details of history you do not have to remember. The precepts, teachings of God, and what happens when we depart from them, you do. So as I continue to read from Judges chapters 9 verse 1, this is just a little bit of the history of the transition I just talked about. Okay, it's called Abimelech's conspiracy. Judges chapters 9 verse 1. "And Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, who died, went to Shechem unto his mother's brethren, and communed with them and with all the family of the house of his mother's father, saying, 60 persons reign over you, or that one reign over you? Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. And his mother's brethren spake of him in the ears of all the men of Shechem all the words. And their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, He is our brother. And they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal-berith, where with Abimelech hired veiled and light persons which followed him. And he went into his father's house at Ophrah, and slew his brethren, the sons of Jerubbaal, that's Gideon, being 70 persons upon one stone. Notwithstanding, yet Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. And all the men of Shechem gathered together, and all the house of Millo, and went and made Abimelech king by the plain of the pillar that was in Shechem. Jumping to verse 21. And Jotham ran away and fled, and went to Beer, and dwelt there for fear of Abimelech his brother. When Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dwelt treacherously with Abimelech, that the cruelty done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might come, and their blood be laid upon Abimelech their brother, which slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, which aided him in killing his brethren. Verse 55. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed every man unto his place. Thus God rendered the wickedness of Abimelech, which he did unto his father, in slaying his 70 brethren. And all the evil of the men of Shechem did God render upon their heads, and upon them came the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal. Now, as I said, we are to remember that Gideon was given the name of Jerubbaal for destroying the altar of Baal. Now, verse 4 above, which says the house of Baal-berith, is a place of worship for Lord Berith. Pagan gods were called lords. Judges 9:46. And when all the men of the tower of Shechem heard that, they entered into an hold of the house of the god Berith. Now, Bible translators wrongly gave the title Lord to Yahweh God. I assume they've got it from the Church of Rome, or the Catholic Church, who took out the name of God, Yahweh, and inserted the word Lord. The leadership of the congregation, children, nation of Israel, is in turmoil. The people do not want persons of God to lead them, or individuals as Abimelech are assuming power and leadership. Almost like the former challenges to Moses' leadership by Korah in Numbers 16:30. Continuing from chapters 10. Verse 1. And after Abimelech there arose to defend Israel Tola, the son of Pur, the son of Dodo, a man of Iscara, and he dwelt in Shimmer in Mount Ephraim, and he judged Israel 23 years, and he died, and was buried in Shemah. And after him arose Jair, a Gileadite, and judged Israel 22 years. And he had 30 sons, and rode on 30 as colts, and they had 30 cities, which are called Havoth-Jair unto this day, which are in the land of Gilead. And Jair died, and was buried in Canaan. Continuing from chapters 10 verse 6, which is further disobedience and oppression. The children of Israel did evil again in the sight of Yahweh, and served Baalim and Ashtoreth, and the gods of Syria, and the gods of Zidon, and the gods of Moab, and the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and forsook Yahweh, and served not him. And the anger of Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he so the children of Israel that were on the other side of Jordan, in the land of the Amorites, which is Gilead. Moreover, the children of Ammon passed over Jordan to fight also against Judah and against Benjamin and against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was sore depressed. And the children of Israel cried unto Yahweh, saying, We have sinned against thee, both because we have forsaken our God, and also served Baalim. And Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, Did not I deliver you from the Egyptians, and from the Amorites, and from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines? The Zidonites also, and the Amalekites, and the Ammonites did oppress you, and you cried to me, and I delivered you out of their hand. Yet ye have forsaken me, and served other gods, wherefore I will deliver you no more. Go and cry unto the gods which you have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. Now Baalim, Baal with the letters I-M at the end of it, is plural for the singular Baal. So Lord becomes lords. Baal becomes Baalim, just like we would add an S to a word to make it plural. In Hebrew, an I-M is added. So Baal and Baalims. Okay, moving on to Judges chapter 11. This is where Jephthah delivers Israel. Reading from verse 1. Now Jephthah, the Gileadite, was a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of an harlot. And Gilead begat Jephthah. And Gilead's wife bare him sons, and his wife's sons grew up. And they thrust out Jephthah, and said unto him, Thou shalt not inherit in God's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. Then Jephthah fled from his brethren, and dwelt in the land of Tob. And there were gathered vain men of Jephthah, and went out with him. Now read the rest of the account. Jephthah is asked to come back and lead them into battle against Ammon. Remember, he is the son of a strange woman, so show you another intermarriage, just like Judah intermarried and other people did. Yet Jephthah was going to be a man used by God. Okay, Jephthah's tragic vow, reading from verse 29. So after he made a vow with God, basically God used him to deliver Israel, that he would do certain thing. God made him win a battle, and he's now coming back home. Then the Spirit of Yahweh came upon Jephthah, and he passed over Gilead and Manasseh, and passed over Mizpeh and Gilead, and from Mizpeh of Gilead he passed over unto the children of Ammon. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto Yahweh, and said, If thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be Yahweh's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. Verse 34. And Jephthah came to Mizpah unto the house, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dance, and she was his only child. Besides her he had neither son nor daughter. And it came to pass, when he saw her, that he rent his clothes, and said, Alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low, and thou art one of them that trouble me. For I have opened my mouth unto Yahweh, and I cannot go back. Again, continue to read the story yourself.
I must add here, if you look at the words or the vow of Jephthah, he said, whatever and it. In those days, people used to keep animals in their homes. They weren't like us today, but the sheep, the goats, and would be part of their household. So Jephthah probably expected one of the animals to come out of the house, and the first one that comes out, he would offer to God. It just so happens that his daughter came out, and not mincing his words, as it were, he didn't want God to hold it against him, almost like Abraham and Isaac, see if he was willing to sacrifice his child, same way Abraham was, and that's what he basically kept to his vow. But I must say, he didn't actually kill his daughter, because that would have been against God's laws. If you continue to read the story, you will see she just lived her life as a virgin, if I can call it that. Okay, let's continue the story, or the account, should I say.
So Jephthah's vow is similar to that of Hannah's, with a similar outcome. We shall come on to that in 1 Samuel chapters 1 verse 11. That reads, "And she, Hannah, vowed a vow and said, O Yahweh of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto Yahweh all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head." And then you remember that she bore Samuel. Okay, chapter 12 of Judges, starting from verse 6. "Then said they unto him, Say now Sibboleth. And he said, Sibboleth." Sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong. Judges 12 verse 6. Then said they unto him, Say Shibboleth. And he said, Sibboleth. For he could not frame to pronounce the word correctly. Then they took him and slew him at the passage of Jordan, and there fell at that time of the Ephraimites 42,000. And Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then died Jephthah the Gilead, and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. Now, I put that in to show how important pronunciation is. It can distinguish you from being for or against something or someone. In this case, the wrong pronunciation meant life or death. And I use it in Corinthians, in reference to Corinthians 14, 1 Corinthians chapters 14 verse 7, which reads, "And even things without life-giving sound, with a pipe or harp, except they have a distinction in the sounds, how shall it be known for what is piped or harped?" Acts chapter 4 verse 12, "Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven among men whereby we must be saved." Now that name was not a Greek nor English one of Jesus, but Yeshua. And it says, just as the Bible translators change Yahweh into Lord, they change Yeshua into Jesus. It is not a transliteration or translation as people like you to believe. Now there may be a reason why the deceivers' ministers changed the name or the sound for you to utter. God may desire us to move onto the proper name that he gave us, Yeshua, and stop using the imposed name of Jesus. Okay, finally, chapter 12, verse 6 of Judges. "And after him Izzan of Bethlehem judged Israel, and he had 30 sons and 30 daughters, whom he sent abroad, and took in their daughters from abroad for his sons. And he judged Israel 7 years. Then died Isbeth, and was buried in Bethlehem. And after him Elam, a Zebulunite, judged Israel, and he judged Israel 10 years. And Elam the Zebulunite died, and was buried in Azalon, in the country of Zebulun. And after him Abdon, the son of Hillel, a Perizzonite, judged Israel, and he had 40 sons and 30 nephews, and rode on 70 asses, as colts, and he judged Israel 8 years. And Abdon, the son of Elite, the Perizzonite, died, and was buried in Peranthon, in the land of Ephraim, and in the mount of Amalekites. Now from the death of Moses and Joshua we have seen frequent change of leadership, constant disobedience to keeping God's laws, regret, repentance, which means turning back to God's laws and his deliverance through an appointed deliverer. So let us learn from those lessons and change our ways to being obedient to God's laws and not follow the traditions of men that teach that they have been changed or Yeshua came to do away with them or any of that nonsense. Shalom until tomorrow, God willing.